For 2 weeks only, get your own Zombie Killer t-shirt. A link is down below.
And I would say don't overlook the physical representation of the map as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Jason Blundell has told us not to dismiss the physical representation of this timeline. And there's a lot going on in this image. I mean, this image is massive. You can zoom in on it for days. And it probably takes about 2 hours to read the entire thing. I mean, this image is just goddamn huge. And there's so much information on it. And then when you consider that it's not only the words in this image, but also the physical layout of it and how it is represented on paper, it gives you a lot to think about. And there really is so much going on. And there's a lot to really think about. So what I did is I went into Photoshop and I've just kind of been playing around with it, making outlines for it. And this is a part of a future project that you guys will hopefully be seeing soon, but I thought I would also make a video on it while we have all this stuff right here. You know, I also just want to show you this. So this is like everything highlighted on the image. There is so much going on. And right here, this is what I find absolutely ridiculous. This is Richthofen's journey alone. It scoots around like this, and then it goes up here and out here. No, I think I messed that up, actually. Either way, it just goes all over the goddamn place. Richthofen's journey is a freaking mess. But there's something I do want to take note of. So these are all the different universes right here. You have the original one. This is the one that Ultimates does most of their journey, and you played through this in a lot of World at War, Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2. This is Dimension 63. This is where things like Mob of the Dead, Shadows of Evil, and Origins exist. Then you have the fractures over here, and you'll notice they sort of do this weird jumpy thing where they kind of break the spiral for a minute and then jump. They do that here, here, and a little bit here, but not so much. And then this is Argotha right here. These are all the different universes. You'll notice when Treyarch released their video on the timeline, you saw the summoning key kind of flow into the middle of the image. And then what was started to reveal was all the different universes. So you had this one spiral kind of swirl around, and then as that swirled around, other different universes happen, and then the different journeys of the characters started to appear on it. But what started it all was the summoning key in the middle. And one of the big things on the summoning key are all the different circles on it. And I don't know, for some reason I just thought, well, maybe this is almost in a way a representation of the summoning key too, or maybe the summoning key kind of leaves a little bit of its physical shape on the image, and that's why everything appears as a spiral. So what I did was I took this image of the summoning key right here. What we're going to do is just take this and we'll rotate this so everybody can see it. This is the summoning key. You can find this sketch on Shadows of Evil. And you'll notice the way the summoning key works, it has all these different bulges and all these different circles that kind of stretch around the image. And maybe what we can do is take this and we will lower the opacity on the image. And we're almost just going to kind of try to line up the different circles with what's going on the image. So maybe... So what you can do is look at it as something like this, where... So this is the summoning key, and you'll notice you have this circle here, and this circle here, and then as we lower the opacity a little, you can see this circle lines up with this universe, and this circle lines up with that universe, and this one, you could argue, is probably maybe the center one, but you could say this is the center one, and this one on the edge here lines up with Dimension 63, and of course, there are other dimensions in the zombie universe, such as Dimension 2210, maybe. If that was represented on the timeline, it could be represented in a spiral that would exist somewhere over here, lining up with this circle. And I'm not saying that it has to line up exactly with this image right here, but maybe part of the point was that the summoning key kind of left its imprint on the image. And that's what Jason Blundell means when he says, don't knock the physical representation of the image. Perhaps the reason we have it in this spiral form is that the summoning key kind of has all these many different bulges, and you can imagine it almost like a three-dimensional sphere, and each one, and maybe that's why they kind of look off, but maybe you can imagine them almost slanted on an angle. I don't know if that makes sense, but taking a slanted three-dimensional image and representing it two-dimensionally. Maybe that's what's going on here, where this is perhaps larger because this is on the back end of the summoning key, and this is on the front and to the top right, and this is on the front and to the top left, and this is to the bottom left. If you can imagine, there's a sphere inside all four of those rings, or concentric spirals, I guess. They're not concentric circles. It's kind of hard to grasp your mind around, but if you can imagine this as a three-dimensional shape represented in a two-dimensional form, and it just kind of flattens and smushes onto each other, and that's what happens when the summoning key kind of imprints itself into the image, and maybe that's what Treyarch was trying to get across with that trailer. That's just an idea when Jason Blundell talks about the physical representation of this image. You could also potentially look at the different sizes of the universe. So you have the original one right here. This is the grand kahuna of all the dimensions, and this is the largest one. This one goes pretty far into the future, 2035. And then we have one like Dimension 63, which isn't as large, but also much larger. And Reed talked about this in his video on it. And maybe when you start to have all these universes fracture, they go onto one another, and you can see how much they represent, how much they affect one another by how much they're onto, how much space is taken up by the other. So this one takes up a whole lot of space in this timeline. So it ends up actually making a large effect on it. And a lot of what we do in Dimension 63 does have a large effect on what goes on here, and the same goes on for here as well, where what we did in this universe had effects on this universe. And then you have things like the fractured universes, which had a lot of things going on because of what went on there. Almost more than half of it is affected by this universe right here. And then you have Argartha, which is also in another situation like this, especially when you have maps like Revelations, which were also greatly affected by this. Now, the only area where I would argue this falls apart is when you have, say, the fractures and dimension, or the fractures in Argartha. So a lot of the fractures, especially what went on over here, if we zoom in and go down to the left right here, a lot of this are a lot of the fractured radios that we found in Revelations. Well, if the physical layout of it would represent the universes affecting one another, then this, and this should be bleeding into the Revelations universe, almost like this, where you would have this fracture. Imagine this is the fractured universe, and me moving it also moves the text with it. You would have a situation almost like this, where they kind of coincide onto one another, and that's just not what we see go on in Revelation. So the idea that where they're laid out and how they affect one another doesn't exactly make a lot of sense to what we see in game, but it isn't something we dismiss. I think it is also one of the better theories. At the end of the day, we don't have much of an answer yet as to what Jason Blundell means when he says don't dismiss the physical representation of this image. I do think that the summoning key idea might be important because you can kind of line up all these different circles and imagine it like a three-dimensional sphere, where maybe this one's, perhaps there's a sphere on the back of the image that we don't quite see, and this one lines up with that one, and so forth. Or maybe better yet, you can actually stretch this one. Maybe you can actually stretch this image so that it lines up better with that one like that, where that's there, and this is a sphere on the back that we just, or this is a circle on the back of the sphere that we just can't quite see because, of course, it's in the back and this is a two-dimensional image. I don't know, there's a lot of ways you can think about this timeline, but I wanted to create this video just to get the ball rolling. I do feel like the summoning key is important to this image because the summoning key is what creates the timeline in that video. However, I don't know if this specific image of the summoning key is actually important. This is just an image that I found. This is ripped from Shadows of Evil, and it seems to actually fit up well with what I'm talking about, but that doesn't mean that it's actually important. It's just a theory. It's going to wrap things up for this video. I hope you guys find it interesting. Once again, this is the complete timeline kind of highlighted. You can see all the different journeys. They're a freaking mess. This is actually going to be a part of a future project that I'm hoping to get out very soon to you guys. I can't wait to show you guys that. I'm going to go, though. Have a wonderful day, and bye.